Hey guys, I got Tama and Gena Clare here, fellow Robinson Rams. I've actually reconnected with Gena lately, but I haven't seen Tama since high school. But they were two amazing track and field athletes at Robinson. Went on to have college careers, and I'm really glad that you guys can join me today.
Thanks for
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So Tama, I don't think you're on our Facebook group, but me and Gena have reconnected on our Facebook groups dealing with local sports. And we've been for like basketball, soccer, football, and also for Robinson. We have groups where we post photos of star players, the coaches, the big moments. And we've all been networking. This started during the pandemic. And from that, I started doing podcasts of some of the stars of the area. And with Gena, it was interesting because I went to see Bo play basketball, and it wasn't, I wasn't there to see Bo. Bo just happened to be there. I was there to actually watching kid on the other team, on the Marshall team, Matthew Leonard, Keith Leonard's son. And so I posted some photos of Bo the next day, and I made a comment like, "Oh, this is Chris Kublank's son." And Gena was like, "Excuse me," and she was actually the better athlete of the couple.
I wasn't mad.
So, yeah, but I had forgotten how good you guys were in track and field, and so I'm glad to be able to talk about that and kind of go through your background. I thought first yesterday I interviewed some twins that played basketball, and twins are interesting because and they were identical twins. You guys, at best Irish twins, but twins, it can be difficult because you have two players with the exact same characteristics. You got to fit them into a 5-person team. Generally, it's great if they're both great, but it's still challenging if one kid's not playing more than the other and all that stuff. And you guys didn't have the problem because you weren't twins. You were 15 months apart and you were a grade apart. But you ever thought about the challenges you guys had of being so close together in age? Did it make it more competitive? And also, maybe in some regard, would it have been easier to be twins? Why don't we start with Gena on that?
Well, I would say so. Freshman year, I ended up going out for track because I played soccer. Tam and I both grew up playing soccer in Braddock Road. In those days we called it select teams. Yeah. And so, like Blake Hofford and I and Tracy Duke, we were all going to play soccer, so we went out for indoor track. So that's how we got into it. And Tama was in 8th grade at that time, so I had some success freshman year. And then the next year, she actually was a cheerleader. She was a freshman cheerleader, and then I think did winter track and then played soccer. But we both had like immediate success. Like we were fast, so we did well running. And I would say my sophomore year, when I was not having a lot of success, and then Tama came on and was having success, like there was definitely a little bit of, I would say, jealousy. And like you saw that one article they did in the post, they called it like sibling rivalry. We ran different events, so that helped. And honestly, I think the coaches kept it that way because we were competitive. And I think Dee Raines even made a comment in that article that we would go out on distance runs and they would say, "Hey, make this an easy day." But Tama could always push the pace. And we would come back, everybody was in a bad mood. You're like, "Oh my God, we ran that much harder than we wanted to."
Yeah. So that competitiveness transferred over to just training runs.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Tama, did you see it the same way?
Yes and no. I mean, Gena was definitely faster than I was. I mean, it took me, the 800 to start actually going, and Gena could just kill it from the beginning. So I think I was probably trying to prove myself on those distance runs because that's what I was better at. They always got mad because they called me the half stepper, and I didn't mean to. I think, again, you're just competitive. I have to say, I think our parents did a pretty darn good job because, I mean, they were at every single meet, and there's obviously some that I did well and Gena didn't do that well, or Gena did well and I didn't do well. And, it's hard to celebrate one when the other one, but at the same time, I think our parents are pretty straightforward, and that's life. Get over it and move on. There, but I don't know. I mean, we were definitely competitive, but I think that it helped push each other to be better.
So it may have added some strain to the relationship, but it made you better athletes because you had that person to compete against that was close in talent and close in age.
And we had different strengths.
Yes.
She was better at the longer, like cross country, she killed it. And I hated cross. I mean, I liked cross country for the team part of it, but like 3 miles to me was 2.5 miles too long. And that was her like forte. So I had more the speed and she had more the endurance. So we trained well together because my weakness was her strength and vice versa. So it was a good training situation.
Yeah. So we're talking about that Washington Post article. It is the most inappropriate article for today's times you'll ever read. They talk about your freckles. They kind of described you as being catty. All the stereotypes. It was strange. Even if these things existed in real life, you would never write articles about children or high school students that way anymore. So when you read it, it's just so it didn't age very well.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
And I mean, I look at a lot of things, even when I coached in high school, I'm like, gosh, the things my coach would say to me, I wouldn't dream of saying to kids these days. I mean, you just wouldn't for a variety of reasons. But honestly, we never took offense or got upset. That was how it was. And you moved on, went along with it.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember times where, Coach Hines, Maynard Hines, who was an amazing coach. I mean, Gena and I loved him. Everyone loved him.
Right.
There were times where he was like, oh my God, did you just give up? What did you do? But he was right. And we both responded well to that type of coaching. But this day and age, you did that, then you're, abusing a kid. It's just weird to me. I'm so far removed from it. Gena is not, because being a school teacher and she was a coach after, I was not involved in athletics except, keep in shape doing my own, but I never coached or anything. So it's kind of weird for me to, when you read things and someone's getting in trouble because of X, Y, Z. And I'm like, well, is that really necessary? But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. So when I was talking to Rob Musio, he mentioned the closeness of a track coach to the athlete. You don't think about that in basketball because, basically in basketball, when you're coaching, you usually have all 12 kids there or whatever. And there is some individual work you do with kids. But, when Rob was talking about when he was coaching himself, he's coaching pole vault and some other things at Robinson.
Yeah.
And, and also he was talking about all the individual work he got with, I forgot what coach it was, but when he was doing a decathlon, they'd meet him there before school. Yeah. And it was so much individual time that the coaches spent with one athlete. You don't really have that in a lot of other sports.
No. Well, at track and field, there are so many events. And even though at the end of the day, they combine points that everyone scores, it's very individual because each individual person has to do their own performance, kind of like wrestling. Like wrestling's a team, but everybody has their own individual performance. And especially with the field events, those coaches did work individually, but Maynard Hines had a way of being able to manage it. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I think it was my freshman year. We were doing a track workout, 300s. So we would start at the far end of the track, basically at 300s, 3/4 of the track. You're running the whole track except for that first curve. So you'd start on the other side and run down towards, the finish line. At the same time, he was working with Rob in the decathlon circle, throwing the disc, or not decathlon,
yeah. I know you're talking about
discus throw.
Discus throw, yeah.
Rob, because he was state champion for 3 of the 4 years, I think. He was hitting the track where we were finishing. So like Coach Hines is like, all right, girls, like heads up. Like, don't get hit by a discus, basically. And so he's timing us, watching us at the same time, coaching Rob, who's throwing the discus. And any other kid in the state that you're coaching, you don't have that concern that it might hit one of the runners on the complete other side of the track.
Wow. That's
so balancing all that.
Yeah.
Also, I felt like he also had the ability to make everyone feel like they were, I don't want to say special, but it didn't matter if you were, Gena, who was the number 1 800 runner, or you were the gal who was the 10th. He Yes. Did he spend more time with Gena? Of course, because Gena's season was a lot longer because, you know, she kept going on and on and on, the districts, regionals, state, and, you know, and all of the other, what do we call them?
Invitationals.
Thank you, invitationals. I couldn't think of it. The invitationals. So, I mean, there is that, but on a day-to-day, he didn't treat anyone any different.
Yeah.
I think if you came to the track, you would not know when we were all sitting around and he's talking to all of us who, you know, who was who or who did what and where you were in the lineup.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I knew him a little bit because he coached football. I forgot.
Right,
He coached
yeah.
running backs.
That's right.
Yeah, so he coached me. I didn't know him too well, but he was always a really good guy. So why don't we let's go back to you know, the Laurel Ridge days. I assume you guys were raised in Laurel Ridge because that's where I met.
Right.
Yeah.
We lived in Kings Park West, grew up right there in the neighborhood.
86th.
Progress. Yeah, because I remember I met Gena. So I was good friends with Ellen Hartman, and
Yeah.
and you came to a basketball game your 6th grade year. We were in 7th grade because Robinson 7th to 12, obviously, and we were sitting behind the basket, and that's where we met because you were friends with Ellen, and I was friends with Ellen as well.
Mhm.
I knew you guys were Laurel Ridge kids. So did
Yeah.
you guys? So I remember at Oakview, I was a fast runner as well, but fast runners didn't run track. We played football and we played
Right.
other sports, and then they have this field day at the end of each
Mhm.
year where, you know, they would notice that you were fast and track. And then we had, I guess we called it AAU, but everyone back then called it Junior Olympics. And then there was like regional meets, and that was the only track I ever heard about because, you know, I probably should have run track. I could have been a good 55 guy. I was fast, but there was really no path, easy path to run track. So how did you guys get interested in track? And were your parents track runners too? I guess they probably had to be fast.
Well, like I said, it was because of soccer. Like I was like, oh, I'm going to try out for soccer in the spring. Maybe I should run indoor track to be in shape for soccer. Then I went out the first meet and like qualified for states, I think in the 500. And Coach Hines was like, forget this soccer business. Like you're not playing soccer. I was like, what?
Is that
I mean,
right? You didn't play soccer? You quit soccer?
No, I didn't. That was the last I ever played soccer.
Oh, wow.
Now Tama ended up going on and playing. You played soccer your freshman year, right?
And sophomore.
And sophomore year, that's right. She didn't do spring track. And like Blake Hofford still kept playing soccer. But I ended up with the track and I stuck with it. And like I said, we grew up playing Braddock Road Travel. Tama was on the Galaxies that, you know, they won everything, the famous Galaxies. And I was on the Hot Shots, which we weren't as, you know, competitive as the Galaxies. But, you know, we thought we were soccer girls until we got to high school. And then we're like, well, maybe we're not.
But I'll have to say in Laurel Ridge, I do remember when we had to do that because Gena, you always had the record in the pull-ups.
The flex arm hang, I had the record.
Flex arm hang, exactly. I like to say pull-ups, but it wasn't. Oh well. But it was the 600. Isn't that what we ran? And I think you had the record, then I got the record. I mean, we definitely were, you know, fast and we got noticed, but we were like not interested because of soccer.
Right. Tim, who was on the Galaxies? Which players would I know in the Galaxy? Which of the star players would I've heard of? In the Galaxies?
Cindy Cunahara, Jennifer Smith.
Wow. Yeah.
But they were Robinson girls.
Yeah,
but Robinson. Yeah. So Kathy Carter came up and played with us for a while. So did Kathy Cotton.
Kathy was on Hot Shots.
Yeah, but she came up when we played an under 19 tournament. There was a couple of them that came up that were eligible or came, I guess, down, if you will, because of age. But I think on Robinson, I think that was it, right?
Yeah. I got to know Cindy a little bit. I knew someone really well on the UVA girls soccer team, and so I went to all their games, and I mean that was just an amazing, almost historic team because you had all this play like Amanda Cromwell and
they were crazy.
Oh yeah, they were amazing, and so I got to know those folks well. How about you, Gena? Who was on your team? Anybody on the Hot Shots?
Kathy Cotton, Blake Hofford. I feel like most of it was like Woodson girls.
Yeah.
Like that was mine. It was.
Yeah. So probably, if it would all happen again, do you guys think you would have still ended up in track? It seems like it's almost probably more likely
I think so.
You would have been track runners now because you probably would have been you probably would have been noticed and sent to a track specialist, or get some personal training at an earlier age nowadays, and in this day of helicopter parents, right, Gena?
Right. And I feel like in those days too, like we were still like, we would swim in the summer. We played soccer. I played basketball, I think one season. I was terrible. Then, I mean, and Tama went to high school, and then she's like, oh, I think I'll go be a cheerleader. Like never did a cartwheel in her life. Like, we weren't, it wasn't like she was a gymnast.
Yeah.
Did cheerleading, did track, went and played soccer. Like in those days, you didn't feel like you had to do one sport all year round. It was just starting to get that way, I feel like, with the soccer,
Yeah. And I think soccer is one of the first sports to require specialists. Yes. I think the other sports like baseball, football, they didn't start specializing probably until like 2000s. So Gena, you may have saw that I interviewed the former coach for Centerville, Kevin Harris, and his son.
I watched the interview. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one thing that struck me is that he not only played basketball, as a matter of fact, he doesn't seem like he plays much like basketball. He's been trained since he was a very young age. Like when I was young, I played basketball, football, and I played tennis as well. But we didn't like train in basketball. We would just play all the time. And I remember I asked Coach, did you guys just play? Does he play? It's almost not even a thing. And I guess Bo's probably involved in this too. It's just something, they don't just play the sport anymore. It's all about training for the sport these days.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because Bo, because he's played baseball all these years, that's what he does in the summer. Mm-hmm. So, in 7th and 8th grade, when it got to like when he was little, we would do these like little AAU teams and play baseball. Well, that you're jumping in your car, playing a baseball game in Loudoun County, changing into basketball, driving to DC, playing basketball, coming back for the baseball. Finally, one weekend, we're like, what are we doing to this kid, right? So then, as he got older, I think if you would ask him, I think he enjoys playing basketball more. But I think since growing up, he always thought he had a better chance of playing like D1 baseball more than D1 basketball. Like, let's face it, right? Just from a numbers, everything else standpoint. Yeah. And so then he started playing, he'd do baseball in the spring and the summer. And then the fall, he'd play like very low key baseball, but would start training for basketball. And then like all these other kids, I mean, most of the kids, by the time you get to this senior year of high school, like they're all playing AAU. I mean, Bo wasn't played AAU basketball in how long? Yeah. So when he does play basketball now, it is pickup. So he does it out of just enjoyment, because the only time he has to train for basketball, or he has the last 4 years of high school, has been in that fall. And he's gone to, he works out with Doug at Evolution. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there are years that we're like, dude, it's September. You got to put a basketball in your hand.
Yeah. But on the other hand, the good thing about kids who play lots of different sports is they're very competitive and they handle pressure situations better. Like Bo, I saw his game a few weeks ago, and he missed a few shots in the fourth quarter, but when the shots mattered, he made all of them. It's almost like he's such a competitive kid, and that's what you get when you play a lot of sports. So when you specialize, you can't elevate your skill level. You can get great at those skills. But when you play a lot of sports, you become more of a competitive person. So you do. I mean, there's a trade-off, and I think it's a good trade-off.
And I think he feels, and he's not as good in either sport because he didn't just concentrate on one. But I don't think he would change it. And I think, like when he plays both sports, like his competitiveness is what carries him. Like he's just gritty, and the skill part, he's not going to have like the kids that are in the gym or in the batting cage 24/7,
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I agree with all that, but I have to tell you, there's part of me who sometimes thinks, well, if I was a high school kid today, and everything we know about running, and you don't just run now, you do all of these other strengthening and swimming and all of these things to better you as a runner. I always think, God, I wish I could have known that back then, because I feel like we would have all been faster. And quite honestly, if you look at the times, running, everything goes down, down, down. And it's because they're cross training. They're doing different things. They're not just running. They're really training their whole body.
Yeah.
We never
the injuries too.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, you guys kind of discovered track just because you're great athletes, but like for my son and to some degree my daughters, at our elementary school in Arlington, your social network is set up by the soccer teams. So that it happens at kindergarten, and your friends are on their kids are on their soccer teams. And so there's so much pressure to play soccer and to get good at soccer because you want to make the travel team because that's prestigious. And so it's always about soccer. And then some kids, get the basketball and other sports, but you get pigeonholed in these sports, and you don't even try track and field. And I think it's unfortunate because there's very few people that are really going to be good in soccer. It's one of those sports where it's a skill set. But anyway, let's get back to the Clare sisters for a minute. So you guys go to high school and you're playing soccer, and then you discover track, and you have success. You have success right away. And your freshman year, Gena, I think was probably one of your best years. And I think that happens a lot because I know. Remember Lori Berkey? Lori,
yeah.
A lot of athletes, track athletes, they grow differently. And I think a lot of people, Lori was she was tiny, and then she grew and she became a woman. And all of a sudden she had to change her training habits, and everything about her changed. And I think it happens to a lot of athletes because you grow quickly and all of a sudden your body changes and you have to grow into it. It happened to my son in soccer. He got really tall. And so he used to be a great dribbler. All of a sudden the ball was far away from his midsection. So he had to change the way he played.
Awkward, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, is that some of the things that happens to track athletes as well?
Well, there's no question, because when I was a freshman in high school, I looked like a 10-year-old. So I went out there and I could run, and, I weighed about 95 pounds maybe, and then I got injured, I think in the fall of the next year for cross country. And then being injured, I started growing, and then I looked like a girl. I looked like a woman and about 15 pounds on me. Speaking of Coach Hines is like, yeah, this is not going to work. I mean, what he would say to me, he'd be fired today. Not that it was inappropriate. He just told you how it was. You can't run with an extra 15 pounds on you. You're not going to run the times you did last year. And he was right. So it took me all of sophomore year to kind of adjust to that. And then junior year was much better. And then senior year, I was where I wanted to be. But it takes a toll, especially I think for the girls. I mean, the boys get a little bit awkward, and then their strength catches up. And with the girls, I think it's a whole different thing, because then you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to run differently. Girls, because you have hips, tend to run like this. And then you got to learn, you can't run like that. It's counterproductive. You have to literally do drills to practice just running your arms the right way. That's going to work for you and not against you. So that was definitely super hard.
Tama, did you have to adjust as you grew as well?
You have to adjust, yeah.
I was a late bloomer.
You feel it's, I don't know what the word, it's embarrassing. I don't know if you remember Katie Collinbell, but she was tremendous. And I'll never forget, it's funny because you asked a question on a poll, I think yesterday, where did you get your news? And we lived and died by what Bill Kamajar would write in the Fairfax Journal. He was that writer for Fairfax Journal. And I'll never forget, Katie won this big invitational in cross country as a freshman. It was freshman sensation, big letters, huge picture of her on the finish line. Well, same thing. She her body changed. And then the next year, she couldn't even break the top, 5 on the team. Yeah. And it was demoralizing. She almost quit track forever. She quit for a year and finally came back. So it's really plays with your head too, kind of,
Yeah. And Tama, did you have certain same struggles, or it came later for you?
It came later for me. I was a late bloomer, so I started to grow a little bit after when I got injured my freshman year in college in the spring. But I didn't have to deal with it as much at all.
Yeah. Well, as you guys know, I didn't either, because I didn't grow to college. The last time I saw you, Tama, and I've seen Gena through the years because I knew Chris, but I was 5'4" or 5'5". So I would have loved to have had you guys Gena's challenges because I was so short. And then my freshman year of college, I became 5'10". And it was weird because, as you guys know, I played basketball and I had to play a certain way because I was so short. And, I had to try to steal the ball. I had to be a pest. I had to play a certain way. When I became 5'10", I could almost play inside like a big guy because I was so used to being so short. And I have long arms as well. And so it was, I would have liked to have had that like to have had that challenge, but
Yeah.
anyway, it just didn't work out. So sophomore year was an adjustment year, and Tama, you hit the ground running your freshman year, right? Because I remember, I remember
in the
you being a
winter.
star at a very, right away. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I did indoor track, and I mean, I found success early,
Yeah.
which was nice.
Yeah.
But I think it was also, I didn't know what I was doing. And sometimes I was the kind of person, if I didn't know what I was doing, Gena would just say, see her, just stay right behind her and I'll kick her in the end. And that's just what I tried to do. I mean, ignorance is bliss sometimes. So it worked for me.
So you listened to Gena. So what was your relationship like? So we talked a little bit about, now we're getting into the Washington Post stuff, but we talked a little bit about how you guys pushed each other, and it was good that you guys were close, but obviously it wasn't easy. So, but then you just said you listened to her. So she gave you direction and you actually responded. So what was the relationship as competitors and living together?
I mean, to me, she was my older sister. I mean, I looked up to her, and she had this incredible social life and I didn't. And, everyone thought she was so much fun to be around. And so, I was kind of probably the pesky little sister, just trying to get right in there. And then honestly, when we did the 4x8 and the relay and everything, it was both Blake and Tracy were two of Gena's really, really, well, Blake was her best friend and Tracy was her really close friend. And there was me, and I was the younger sister. So, I mean, no matter what I say field, because I call the track and field, or even on the soccer, I mean, Gena was always going to support me and cheer for me and tell me what to do if I didn't know what was going on. But that doesn't, but sometimes after that was it. She'd go her way and I'd go my way. And, so it was, it was a balancing act. It's not like we were the best of friends. We certainly went through a time where we probably were on each other's nerves 24/7. But I mean, it didn't last very long, because after I graduated from college, I lived with Gena. So I mean,
we were roomies.
So Miss Popularity, did you leave Tama at home and just go out and party with all your friends?
No, not at all.
Of course she did.
The best thing about Tama was that she, like she said, ignorant. She didn't know, once I ran after freshman year, you knew who all the studs were at all the other schools. And Tama, because she did soccer and she did cheerleading, she didn't know anything about the other competitors. So she would literally get on the line and we would be like, just try to run with this girl, knowing oh my gosh, can she keep up with, what was her name? Aaron Keogh or, Christie Robbins. But Tama didn't know any better. So she like, get out and try to run with these studs. And, we're like, oh, you got third place, but you just ran under a 5-minute mile. I mean, because when we were running those days, the talent pool in the northern region was absurd. It was absurd.
They were the best in the nation.
Right.
We had the best. I mean, it was crazy.
Wendy Neely, Catherine Burge, Aaron Keogh, it was ridiculous. You would run under a 5-minute mile and maybe get third, or fourth place. I mean, it was absurd. But she didn't know. I mean, and she didn't care. No, she wasn't intimidated by anybody, because she just, I'm here, let me go run. She never overthought it, which, in track, your head can be your worst enemy.
We call it the triumph of the uncluttered mind. You go out there and you just do it. And Al McGuire got in trouble by, I guess, he was a famous basketball coach, and he once said, I don't want my players to be too smart. Because he always felt like if they're too smart, they're going to overthink things. He wanted guys to just go out there and ball. And sometimes it's great just to, it's not an intelligence thing. Sometimes it's great to be able to just, when you go out there, just have tunnel focus and don't worry about things. And I guess
like a pitcher, if the pitcher gets on the mound and thinks too much, he's never throwing strike.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this relay team. So Tracy, I believe, was Gena, your grade. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I knew
Tracy,
Blake
and I were the same.
When did you guys first get together? Is that your sophomore year they first started?
So, Tracy and I were friends in middle, at Robinson in middle school. And then I think she also was a soccer player. We all went out for indoor track together. And so Tracy and I always ran the same events, because she was another more faster person. And so honestly, the relay like when I think about like high school track, that's what I remember are the relays.
too.
Because the individual stuff, yeah, this was nice. And, but the relay, because that was like 4 of you were in it together and everybody has to do their part. You cannot have really a weak link when 4 people are running, especially anything, 2-mile relay and under. There's just not enough time on the track for one person to be slow, for lack of a better word. So they just kind of, like I said, it wasn't a regular event in those days. It is now. And our coaches were like, hey, there's an invitational. We got 4 girls that we think can run a pretty good 800 each. Blake, Tracy, and I also ran the 4x4 relay, which was always we always did well with that at Robinson. But once we could add Tama to the mix, and it was a little bit longer, it was exciting. And I remember we ran that. Buzz Mail was the track coach at Episcopal High School, and he was like Mr. Statistics guy. He knew what everyone did all over the country. And I remember he called Coach Raines, D. Raines, and said, your relay team just ran faster than anybody else in the country, like by like 5 seconds. Like it was pretty substantial.
For a couple of years, yeah.
And then we went up to nationals, and we did win nationals. I forgot.
We did.
I don't know why I forget that. I don't know why, because my mom drove us up to New Jersey, all 4 of us. And we went to this, the Pathmark Nationals, it was called, in March. And we won nationals. And then we started looking ahead towards Penn Relays, because the Penn Relays, was always like the biggie.
What time of year was, go ahead, I'm sorry, Tam, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say, what time of year would those nationals have been? What
I think it was the beginning of March.
So was that big news around school? I mean, was it all in the Washington Post?
It was in USA Today. Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I feel like you guys didn't get your due, because I didn't know you guys won nationals.
Well, it's funny you said that, because there's been a like a sterling silver plate that's been in the Robinson trophy case since then.
Oh, wow.
And 2 years ago when Blake Hofford's now Blake Chakowski, and her husband's the DSA at Woodson, but their daughter, Katie Chakowski, was a great lacrosse player at Robinson, plays at JMU, was a freshman when JMU won the national championship, and she had legit playing time. Mike McGurk was, I think, the
principal.
No, maybe McGurk was already gone. So when Katie graduated, somebody there was cleaning out those trophy cases. And like that plate is at the Chakowski's house. Like they gave it to Dan Chakowski. I'm like, why is that not important anymore?
Exactly.
Like literally, and Katie's like, well, we have so many lacrosse trophies. We have to make room for lacrosse. So I think, track's, kind of a minor sport. So you don't get the accolades, as like, and I mean, rightly so. So that was 4 girls. That wasn't a whole team, right? I mean, but it's kind of funny where I'm like, what? That plate is now at the Chakowski's house. It's not even at
and I'll never forget our older sister, Abby. She had 2 daughters who also went to Robinson and swam. And one of them, like, all of a sudden was like, do you guys know you have a trophy? And we're like, what are you talking about? I mean, we just didn't even, a plate,
Yeah.
that's in the case. And because she didn't believe, I think her mom told her, and she didn't believe that we.
Actually, that's
that
where
good.
Mike McGurk comes into it. But Mike McGurk and one day like saw Haley in the hallway.
Yeah.
Haley graduated in 2008. So this was probably 2006. And he's like, did you know that your aunt's names are like on this trophy? And she was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, we forgot about it. I mean,
I know.
it's so interesting. Gena called track a minor sport. And it's just so funny. Like the French, they call track athletics. It just shows you how they elevate track and field. It's athletics. So if someone's a good athlete, and we look at it in a different way. I mean, obviously the track stars are known to be the fastest or sometimes the strongest or whatever, but it is crazy how we don't classify that. I talked to Rob Musio about this, how hard it was to make a living being an Olympic decathlete. It was very hard to make any kind of money back then. I think it's probably changed now, I hope, but it's too bad. Well, let's talk about the Penn Relays, because for anyone who doesn't know about the Penn Relays, it's an amazing experience. The crowd is crazy. I guess there's a whoosh, someone gets passed on a relay event. describe that meet. That must have been a great moment.
Well, that's like I said, for 4 years, the Penn Relays was like the highlight of her spring, and it was it's the end of April, so it's kind of before you really want to start peaking, but you kind of train through it, and you get there, and you never know what the weather's going to be. It could be pouring rain and cold, or it could be 75 and sunny. You just don't know what to count on the end of April in Philadelphia. But the thing was, even when we ran nationals, so nationals was the beginning of March, and soccer tryouts had already happened, right? Because you start the end of February usually. And we knew Blake was going to go play soccer, even though we were trying to coerce her. Like, it was stressful. Don't you remember that, Tama?
Yep.
We were like, my gosh, she's going to do soccer, but we have this relay. There's Penn Relays. And so she ended up doing the soccer, and we had this Christie Robbins. Gosh, thank God.
That's her name.
Was this little sophomore girl that had potential. We literally were like, listen, there's 3 of us on this relay. We're really good. You got to step up, and we need you to run fast. You're going to come with us every day and train. And to her credit, she was like the first time she was running, but we saw potential, and she was a hard worker. And we just kind of was like, you don't have any choice. You got to be good, and you got to run under a 2:25. And you're going to run with us every day. And here's what we're going to do.
And which relay event was that? Was that the 4x
800 meter relay?
4x8.
So everyone's running 2 laps on the track.
Okay.
So the thing was, we had to change like our strategy from how we ran in the winter. Well, for one, indoor track, right? It's half, the track is smaller. So you're running 4 laps, not 2 laps. So the big thing was messing around with the order. Who was going to run first? And
because it was always you ran first.
Right.
Blake ran second.
This was indoors.
And I ran third. I was the weak link.
No. That was when we ran indoor. But remember with Christie, we changed the order weird.
I know.
We went slowest to fastest, I think.
Yeah. And then Tracy went last. But I think we went Christie first, then you, then Tracy.
Which is weird. You wouldn't usually do that. But
she wanted to get it over. She was too,
Right.
Well,
we didn't want her to get eaten up without we lead her off and just put her out to beginning like any other race. Like, you're starting on the line, you're not accepting the baton.
Because that's a hard one. I think people who've never run a relay don't get how hard the baton passes, because if you're the person coming in, you cannot slow down. But if you're the person who is taking off, you have to try to match the pace of the person who is going to be giving you the baton. And we had it down pat, but it was a hard thing when somebody else came in. So that's why she went first.
Right.
Okay. Now, is it true that in indoor, it might be better to be on the lead first because there's less straightaway to pass? And
right.
So it's more tactical than outdoor?
Well, you just don't want to get in the mess. Like, it's so tight going around the curves, and there's a lot of, even in, especially in the 800, there's elbows and you're getting spiked, and you don't want to be in all the traffic.
And the 2 mile too.
Yeah.
Well, so you lost to the two Jamaican teams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever keep track of those women on the Jamaican teams and whatever came with them? Okay.
I think because the teams from Jamaica, they came in, ran the Penn Relays, and they were gone. Now, a lot of them end up going to, colleges and universities and running track. When I went to Tennessee my freshman year, I was like, oh my gosh, so-and-so, and so, like they were all, I felt like celebrities that I was there with, because you'd heard like Lavana Martin, and she was like the fastest hurdler in the country. And
I don't even know if we knew, we didn't really.
No.
It's not like you went and met them and you knew them by name. We just knew them as the Jamaican team. And they just knew us as, I don't know what they knew us as, but they probably didn't, because it was all very team oriented. Everything was about the team. So the individual person, you might not even, you would recognize them as part of the team, but you might not even know their name.
Right.
Well, in those days, no internet. There isn't
like
you were like Googling who won. You just didn't know that much in those days about
even other people in states. until you ran with them at nationals or something.
Okay, and that was Gena's senior year and Tama's junior
Yeah.
year. Is that correct? So that's still pretty early in the season. You had to have a lot of confidence coming back from that relay. You're third in the nation in the Penn Relays, and you won a national championship. What happened the rest of the season? I assume it probably was a good spring.
So senior year was great until it wasn't, because I was having a great senior year, and our prom was right before state. A prom was over districts, because I remember I had to run the 800 trials. Remember the Robinson prom was always on a Thursday night? So the prom was Thursday night. I had to run 800 trials on Friday.
And you are Miss Popularity, so the prom is very important, so.
Well, that's right. And then and I knew I just had to run 2 laps on the track and just make it out of the heat, but still. Anyways, won the district, won the region, I think at the 800. The week of states, I have like 104 fever. And that, like,
right.
We would get sick. We don't just mess around when we get sick. We run like 104 fevers, and I kept telling my mom, I'm sure I can do it. I'm sure I can do it. And that Friday, I made her drive me down to Newport News, and I just knew I could do it. And I didn't even make it out of the trials heat. Like, I was still in a fever. And, my mom wasn't above it. She's like, well, just take some Tylenol and do the best you can. I mean,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Patsy's like, you can do it.
Yeah.
Totally, Patsy.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to Gena's decision to go to Tennessee, what about your senior year, Tama? So Gena's graduated, so now you're one of the senior members of the track team. How did your senior year go? Did you get a brand new relay team to work with?
Nope. After that, the 4x8, after they graduated, I never ran the 4x8 again.
Okay.
I mean, 800. I mean, the 3200 was my race. The 1600 and the 32. So it wasn't something that I had a desire to do anyway. And I think at that time, Christie already had quit track, right, Gena?
I think so. I don't
And
think
she
we put so much pressure on her. She was like one and done, I think.
She decided to do other things, but yeah, so there was no 4x8. It was a little lonely.
Yeah. And you ran cross country as well. Is that right?
Yes.
And did you do well in cross country? Were you like you won the region cross country, right?
I don't think so, because I would have had Keogh in front of me. He was number 1 in the nation.
Oh, that's
right.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no. No, but I made that. Didn't I make like that All-American something my junior year?
Yeah.
My senior, I don't know. I mean, I can't remember all the names
Something silly like that.
but
just all American.
My senior year, I did well. Yeah, I think I ran my best times my senior year, except maybe not cross country.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I did well, for me, but my times weren't any better than they were my junior year, I don't think.
Right. And was it less fun because some of your friends, Gena, had graduated?
Yep. Yeah,
And
it was less fun. I had no one to train with, so I trained with some of the guys, which was fine, but it was still just wasn't as fun.
Right.
I mean, we were very social, especially Gena, and that made it
Going back to that
so much more fun, and it made it more relaxing. It made it. I think I had more anxiety my senior year, and I was more anxious because I didn't have that pack with me.
Yeah. Well, before we get to Gena's decision to go to Tennessee, what made you guys such good runners? I think you guys you're long-legged. I remember you guys the way you're built. Is that just the way you're built? I mean, you guys are incredible runners, and to have 2 in the same family with so much talent, what do you think it is? What's the secret?
I mean, we were competitive. We were little.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's just.
I think in those days, though, you just it was so. There were so many good. Even like on the Robinson team, the girls that weren't in our events, but think of Ann McCool and Leslie Stephens, and we had good athletes at Robinson, and I just think that kind of elevated your you just expected. And when we went to Robinson, I feel like this is how my kids feel at Madison. we felt sorry for anyone that didn't go to Robinson. Like we thought everyone thought Robinson was it. And I feel like, you know, home of champions. I mean, that's how you felt. Like if you represented Robinson, you were expected to be good. I mean, think of like even the grade older than us, soccer, Megan McCarthy and Kathy Walsh. I mean, just the whole, that era at Robinson in sports,
Crazy.
You competed. I don't know.
Especially on the girls' side. I mean, the basketball teams are outrageously good.
Yeah, Kathy Cotton.
I mean, so I mean, even and a little bit before you guys, my sister's generation of basketball, they won 2 state championships in a row. They won the region in soccer.
Basketball was always great.
Yeah, it was crazy. So,
but that's it. You wanted to be good because you felt like you didn't want to let anyone down.
Yeah, exactly.
You were just supposed to be, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
I talked to the wrestling coach a few weeks ago, Brian Hazard, great guy. And it's funny because the basketball team, the boys, we really weren't good. And there was a coaching change and Bob McKeag became the head coach and he was a great coach. But it took time for him to build the program because we'd been 3-18 before he got there. And then my junior year, his first year, we were about 10-10 and then 10-10 again. And then, they ended up going towards the state tournament the year after Tama graduated, but it just took time. But I remember feeling like everyone else in the school was great except for us, especially the wrestlers. I felt like they were just all the girls wanted to cheer wrestling, not basketball. I mean, we just felt like such losers because we weren't great, and we were pretty good. So, but anyway, so Gena, how did you decide? After prom, because that was so important, how did you decide to go to Tennessee?
So Doug Thompson, that graduated 3 years, I think, ahead of me, he was at Tennessee. So he kept saying he was running track there. He's like, you got to come to Tennessee. And I've told the coach. So I had some communication with the coach and I went to visit. And like my daughter, you go visit and you're like, oh my gosh. And so I went there and I mean, talk about small fish, big pond. Like it was intimidating. It was tough. I was in over my head, put it that way. I was in over my head.
Yeah. Did you get a track scholarship or you walked on or what was the?
It was like a preferred walk-on type.
Yeah.
Like I had a spot on the team, but I wasn't getting any money. And in those days, like, well, if you do this quarter, this semester, we'll give you money next semester. And then if you didn't do so well, they were yanking money back and forth from people, and it's crazy.
Were you driven? I mean, did you feel like track was so important to you? But at that time, you're like, hey, I'm in college now. I want to have some fun. I don't feel like running.
Well, when I got there, I did feel like I was driven but I immediately, I was overwhelmed. It was, I remember the first day of practice, they're like, we're gonna do 10 600s on the 60. I'm like, my best time is the 58. Like, how am I doing 10 of those at 60? I mean, not that they expected you to do that, but it was kind of like, let's see what you're made of.
Yeah.
And I couldn't withstand the training. Even in high school, I could never do like the mileage, say that Tama did, because I just couldn't, I would get hurt. I had a lot of injuries and I couldn't do the training at Tennessee. I mean, 10 miles on Sunday and I'm like, what? So it was too much. I was in over my head there, honestly.
So you ended up going to George Mason. Was that track related or did you want to come home?
So sophomore year, the coach that had recruited me at Tennessee left and went to Texas.
Kansas.
Terry Crawford left.
Kansas.
So,
Didn't he go to Kansas?
I think.
Oh.
Did he come from Kansas and go to Texas? Terry Crawford left Texas and I think he went to Texas. So Gary Schwartz. So most of the girls I was friends with, the other distance runners, most of them left. And everybody was leaving. And honestly, in retrospect, I can tell my kids all the time, because, ironically, my daughter's there. And now Bo wants to go to Tennessee. And that didn't have anything to do with me at all. But I kind of wish I'd stayed and maybe had done something else, joined a sorority, but I kind of felt like my whole identity was wrapped up in being this, like I couldn't stay there and not run track. Yeah. That's how I felt. And the new coach was bringing other people in. I knew I probably was going to have a chance on the team. So I decided to transfer to George Mason. I was not going to run track, but then Norm Gordon, who was the coach at Mason, found out I had transferred. And he had recruited me out of high school, which, when you go to Robinson, you don't really dream of going around the corner to George Mason for college, right? Like I was like too close. So he found out I transferred. I was like, I'm not in shape. He's like, get in shape or come out from the team and I'll get you in shape. So I ended up running track at George Mason and I did fine and really enjoyed it and glad I did it. But
my one Tennessee story is my last year of law school, UVA played Tennessee in the Sugar Bowl. And that was the first time UVA has been in a major bowl. In Tennessee, of course, it's a great program. And so at the time, we had this, what they call the pep band. And we were a very serious football program. And the pep band would just crack jokes at halftime. And they made some jokes about Elvis. And, we thought it was funny. So, Tennessee fans didn't think that was funny. So, but when you drive back to Virginia, you have to go through Tennessee for a very long time. I mean, you're in Tennessee like maybe like 4 hours.
Yeah, the whole state's like this.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have a UVA sticker on my car. So no one would know I was from UVA, but I had a license plate that said Virginia. So I was driving home. I got flipped off by so many people in Tennessee just because of those Elvis jokes. I mean, that is the most insane sports state and college. I mean, I'm sure Alabama, they're all like that, but it's pretty insane. So Tama, let's get back to you. I know you ended up going to East Kentucky, which I've always thought was a great cross country school as well. So talk a little bit about that decision and how you did at Eastern Kentucky.
I mean, I don't even know how I got there, quite honestly. I think I was, of course, wanting to follow Gena at Tennessee, but my parents were like, no, you got to go on your own, got to go somewhere. And I think because Gena felt like she was over her head a little bit, I was so scared to go somewhere that I would maybe not do well. So I went to a smaller, I mean, it's still not a small school, but a smaller school. And I liked it. I mean, I wish in hindsight, I probably should have gone to a bigger school and maybe pushed myself a little bit more. I went the safe route, but I mean, I don't regret it. It wasn't.
I love that coach. Coach Erdman was great.
I loved Coach Erdman. He was amazing. The school itself was fine. I mean, all I did really was run because everybody went away on the weekends. It was one of those schools. There wasn't nobody stayed. So that was your whole life, was you're running and you do your work, and that was about it, which wasn't bad, but did I miss out on college? 100%.
I'm sorry to hear that. I did looked up your name in the record book. So you did really well in track there.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did, and I did well academically, somewhat. I actually, because there wasn't a whole lot to do on weekends and stuff, I actually did my work, which was probably good.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm sorry you had a great time, but I'm sure you made up for it.
No, I did. No, I mean, I loved. It was great, but when you hear about these other people who were student athletes and also had the great social life and grass is always greener, right? I mean, who knows?
Exactly.
It's like Instagram. It's people are going to tell you what you want to hear, not really what reality is.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, guys. Well, let's close by talking a little bit about how your track career has informed your life, how to affect your life, that competitiveness, always training, like, the moment when Gena was like, Julian, I'm the athlete, what is being a track star meant to you? Have you thought about these meets a lot in your life, or is this something that you look back sometimes like, well, I was actually pretty good at that. And it's almost like something you almost forgot about. And how has it affected your life? And I know Tama's in San Francisco now, which is one of my favorite cities in the world. And, and Gena's my neighbor in Northern Virginia. Yep. Just talk a little bit about track and how it's affected your life and what you're doing, what you're doing today. You want to go first, Gena? Or
go ahead, Gena.
Okay.
Well, I went on to be a PE teacher. So obviously, like, I always had like the fitness, kind of thing, I guess to say. And then I immediately started coaching. Even when I was student teaching, I went to student teach at Centerville High School. And, since I hadn't been out of high school too long. Mike Dobson and Jim Oliver were the coaches there. They're like, hey, like they recognized my name and they were like, do you want to come coach with us? So I immediately started coaching at Centerville. And then ended up going to Lake Braddock because I was always great friends with Bob Digby. When I transferred to Mason, he was in all my classes with me. So when he found out I started coaching, he was like, you got to come to Braddock. You got to come to Braddock with me. So I went and coached with him and Marshall Windsor at Braddock for a number of years and loved it. And then my good buddy, Chris Tully, called me one day and was like, hey, this was like August, like school's going to start in a few weeks. And he's like, I'm teaching at Oakton High School. Someone just left. We need a track coach and a female PE teacher. And I was like, maybe I'm ready for a change. I've been teaching elementary school 7 years. I went to Oakton and became the head track coach there. And then that's when I met Chris. And he, once he became the basketball coach and we got married and started having kids, I stopped coaching. But, it's been a big part of my career. And we laugh because once we had kids old enough to do sports, I think all the other parents in Vienna thought we were like the crazy people, like, oh, we gotta go train, like it's snowing out. Where can we get an indoor gym somewhere? Like, isn't he just 5 years old? We're like, well, yeah. Or like, Chris would take my kids up to Madison and even my daughter, like teach them how to like dribble with both hands. And so.
Yeah, you parent like me. But to put a little pressure on you, which coach had the most influence on how you coached your athletes at Oakton?
I would say Coach Hines, definitely Maynard Hines, because he was just so, he had a system, like what you were doing, like, on January the 10th, he worked backwards. Here's where we want to be in June. If the Virginia State meet for spring track is June 4th, here's where we want to be, so that he'd work backwards. And then for what Rob was saying individually, let's say Tama was going to play soccer. Well, then he's going to, make her workouts on where does she want to be on March 3rd when it's the state meet for indoor track. So there was a method to everything. He didn't just go out and figure out 7th period, what are the kids going to do the track today? He had a plan, a master plan. And you had to, and plan for a lot of different kids and what their goals are.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, if you ever talk to him, you got to tell him I said hi.
I will talk to him again for sure. Yeah. I just did a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's great. Well, how about you, Tim? How did you end up in San Francisco? And I know you must be loving life out there.
I do. I love it here. But you asked how track also helped us. You have to be disciplined and you have to stay the course. You are going to have moments where you don't do well, and you've got to kind of get over it and move on. And so I think that helps you in all aspects of your life, because whether it's work, marriage, anything, you're going to go through ups and downs, and you need to be able to work through that, and I also think being on a team is really important. And even though being a runner, especially a distance runner, it's very individualized, everything, it's all about you, because you have nobody else. You either do well or you don't, and you can't point fingers because someone didn't pass you the ball or whatever have you. But at the same time, because we were on that relay and it was also very social, you learned how important it is to work together, to be a team and to work with other people. And that helped me a lot because I did events. Doing events, you have a team of people doing these events, and sometimes they're home runs and sometimes they're not. You need to work through that. So I actually was working at a place called Tetra Tech in Northern Virginia, and then somebody had contacted me about a job out here with the Bankers Association. I had worked with the American Bankers Association, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go out for a job interview, but I'm not going to take it. And then I came out here, spent a weekend, I came home, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to take it. It's so amazing. I mean, I didn't know anyone, though. It was a huge thing. I was 32 and I was taking packing it up, moving to California.
Wow.
but I love it. So,
That's awesome.
and it's gorgeous. And guess what? We can run all year here. I mean, I don't run all the time, but
Yeah.
I do run. In fact, when Gena came and visited me, we went and ran to the Golden Gate Bridge and back.
Did you guys race?
No,
We used to do
we were
10Ks
just
and
lucky
stuff
to
when
do
we
it.
lived together, but
Okay.
that was more like, okay, we just don't want to embarrass ourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. But Tam, I can tell by your ceiling you've done quite well. So congratulations on
My ceiling.
all your success. Well, guys, this hour flew by. It was so great to reconnect with you guys. I mean, I get to see Gena a lot, which is awesome. But I'm so glad, Tam. I don't think we've talked since my senior year, which you would have been a sophomore. So it's
Probably.
yeah. So
That's crazy.
It's probably been like four. So hopefully we can keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm glad you decided to do this, and I hope maybe we can get Tracy and Blake together at some point, and Coach Hines maybe in a few months, and we can do the whole relay team, and we can have a good time talking. And also the other person that you guys scared away from track forever.
Yeah.
What was the name again?
Yeah. Christie Robbins.
Yeah. So maybe we can get all five and Coach Hines as well, and do another one in a couple months.
Sure.
Perfect.
I don't think we have that much more interesting things to say, but
Oh no.
Exactly.
Oh,
I'll try to get my facts straight.
exactly. Well, I'm
we
sure.
don't remember specifics anymore.
Yeah, but I'm sure the dynamics would be fun.
Yeah,
you guys
no, it
reconnect.
definitely would.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I think your classmates would love to see you like online. It's people really enjoy when they see their classmates online talking again. It just brings back so many memories for all of us.
Yeah.
And speaking of the bond of a relay, though, I mean, Blake Hofford was in my wedding.
Oh,
Remember,
okay.
she did a reading in my wedding.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Yes.
yeah,
Funny.
yeah. Well, thanks for the invite, Tama.
Yeah.
Next one. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, next one we'll get it right. So
Exactly.
yeah. Well, anyway, guys. Well, thanks again for everything, and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to watch this back. I think it was really awesome to talk to you guys.
All right. Well, thanks for having
Thank
us.
you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. See you
Right.
soon.
Bye, Julie.
Bye-bye.